welcome to the Confederacy of Dunks Basketball Podcast. I am your host, Freddie Rivas, and who, sir, with the nice classic Raptors hat are you?
I am the producer, Matt Duncan. Freddie, how you doing in this Labor Day?
Good. I'm happy for unions and Labor Day itself. How you doing? Doing good?
Yeah, everything's well on my end. Just getting ready to head up to the cottage for a little bit. So, one last holiday for the year.
Beauty. Say hello to Magnetowan or Georgina.
Magnetowan, yeah. Okay. Yeah, we're going way up.
Magnetowan. Shit, I messed it up. Welcome to the podcast, everyone. We are hardcore Raptors fans, analysts, comedians, actors, basically just basketball nuts. If you're returning, thank you. If it's your first time, also thank you. We are with Raptors Republic. And, if you want to help us out, lift us up as local podcasters, Maddie, how can they do that?
Well, if you're catching us on YouTube, please subscribe, please like, please comment, and make sure to go over to raptorsrepublic.com. That's where all of the great articles are that are being written by our great writers at Raptors Republic. You got to check that stuff out, as well as the other podcasts on the network that, many of the guests have been on our pod too, which is awesome. We actually have one today. That's what we do here. So yeah, please support us. If you've got your favorite podcatcher, you can subscribe to us there. And that's it. Yeah.
Damn right, Maddie. Thank you so much for hooking me up. You goddamn pro. Raptor season is coming up. Training camp's coming up. I will say before we get going here, free Brittany Griner. Yeah, let's go to you first, Antony. And we're still in summer territory, but I think we're getting closer and closer. And I was one of the people who thought that the Raptors might waive Svi, but yeah, they have. I was thinking maybe Harris was coming in. Not sure if that's still a possibility. I think we're pretty full up, but we've signed Josh Jackson, who I think was last with the Grizzlies, if I'm not mistaken, drafted by the Pistons. But I guess taking a flyer on him, sort of thing. But just I guess taking into context all the rumors that were this summer and what actually happened, what do you kind of give the Raptors, the Raptors, assuming we're sort of done and ready to start the season with this group? What do you give them out of 10 for this offseason, 10 being absolutely amazing?
I think I'm going to have to go with somewhere around 6.5. I don't know if I'm being harsh, but I didn't particularly love some of the moves that we made, but there were other signings, extensions. I think we did okay in the draft. I think we found some gems that joined us in the summer league. But first and foremost, I want to extend my condolences to my favorite Asian Raptor player who is no longer with the Raptors organization, Mr. Yuta. I will always get posterized because I am a warrior, Watanabe.
He had some blocks, though, right?
Dude, he had some blocks.
Fearless.
And fearless. Truly the warrior spirit. I wish him well in my least favorite New York market, which is Brooklyn.
Very fair.
Yes.
I think he'll bring some wisdom to Kyrie, hopefully.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I hope he makes Kyrie fall in love with the game of basketball again. I really don't like Otto Porter Jr., but this is just like a personal thing because he's burned me in fantasy many, many times. I'm like, okay. Oh yeah, this is the year Otto Porter Jr. is gonna help me up my 3-point percentage on my team, or he's gonna absolutely actually get some points for me, and I'll be able to use him in my rotation. But he's always burned me. However, I think as a part of the Raptors, probably bench, I suppose. I don't think he's starting. He'll be a great defensive contributor, and I think it's nice to have a guy who is confident in his 3-point shot that is willing to take it when he's open. And I think re-signing Boosh and Thad is good for our depth, and Koloko has a ton of potential. It's nice that we targeted somebody who is a center or center adjacent in the draft, and he had some really nice moments as well in the summer league. So I'm excited to see what he can do. I was really concerned that we didn't sign him for a long time. I was like, oh, is he a part of this potential KD package, potential Donovan Mitchell package? I was very worried that we were going to trade a lot for those guys, and I am glad that we stayed put and we're rolling with our core guys, and we believe in the future of the core that we've assembled thus far.
Yeah, well, I mean, lots of good points, and thanks for shouting out Utah. I really enjoyed him, and I thought that you know, he was in a rough spot last year where when he did play, I thought he was a decent player, and if I'm not mistaken, you know, after he got COVID, I don't know if he really had much of a shot when he came back. And, you know, fair enough. I think Nurse had a pretty tight rotation for a lot of the season and, you know, trying to win a lot of games. And I think, you know, not necessarily saving ourselves for the playoffs. We were trying to get a good record and get those reps in that way, which honestly I've come around a little bit on when you think about the big picture. You know, we weren't really going anywhere in the playoffs last year. So I think, you know, Masai said it, Nurse said it. We did get a lot of those reps for, you know, kind of the top 6, top 7 guys on the team. And I think, you know, I don't think you're being too harsh. I feel like I have the Raptors at 8 out of 10. And basically that's kind of like belief in Masai and Nurse and Bobby Webster and what we're doing here and sort of like developing guys. So I think, yes, we didn't make a big trade, but I think that this core, this unit, this bench, which I think we have more of a bench now, deserves a shot. And I've kind of in my head, I've been calling this team like bench mob light a lot, because I think that we do have a really good regular season team. And I think we still have to learn more from this team. But yeah, you know, it's not a 10, right? We didn't, you know, make some trade for a superstar, right? So had we traded for KD, depending on who we traded, maybe that's a 10. But we didn't, and we are rolling with our guys. And, you know, to your point, I think, yeah, you know, we added some nice 2-way guys, and we'll see who makes it from camp. Obviously, you know, Wancho's in the mix, and, you know, Champagne and Banton, and who knows.
Bo Cruz on the Raptors.
Cruz, yeah, I know it's a competitive camp. So I think in that sense, I'm really excited for this team. And I think that we weren't flashy, and Masai usually is not flashy until, you know, he's got to make the move. So that's kind of where I'm at with 8 out of 10. Adon, what about you? You know, hopefully we didn't jump on all the points. Where are you at with the summer?
One thing about Yuta, I also really feel like he didn't get a fair shot. Like they gave him a run for a little while, but he was playing, you know, Yuta's the kind of guy that I think makes a good team better. But if you put him on like a bat with, you know, the bench unit or something, he's going to kind of like fade into, like, you know. And so I just
tertiary piece kind of.
Yeah. And he brought a kind of energy and athleticism that we didn't really have in our depth or on the wing. And I just was shocked at the number of games where he just DNP'd. Like it really just didn't make sense to me. I understand why we didn't re-sign him, but I still don't think he got a really fair shot. So I hope he gets some run in Brooklyn, and I think he will, because they need guys that can just play defense. So
totally agree. And, you know, like to your point, I think he'll be good with, you know, standing in the corner. And, you know, if a guy like Ben Simmons is playing, you know, like he can find him. And yeah, I think Utah is, you know, just totally agreeing with you there.
Yeah, he wasn't hitting his shot, which is unfortunate, but I think he could be a 40% shooter from the corner. Anyway, yeah, so off season, I think, you know, grading a team's offseason is always contextual. Like
Yes.
the New York Knicks could get 10 out of 10 because they got a free agent, even though like Jalen Brunson isn't really going to change their trajectory all that much. And for Toronto, I think it is, I have always argued that for Toronto, it's about the status quo. And I know normally that's not very exciting, but people want a center. They want to, they wanted to sign like a JaVale McGee, or they want like a backup scoring guard, or trade for Eric Gordon, whatever. And I've always said, this is about Masai's vision and long-term dream for this team, which is this, like you said, swingman galore. Everybody's long and switchy. And so in that sense, grabbing Otto Porter Jr., which I agree with you, Anthony, I'm a little bit hesitant with, because it wasn't so long ago that he was completely out of shape and dogging it in Chicago. And, like it looked like he was just going to fade out of the league. He also killed my fantasy team. So I'm a little bit nervous about that. But if he can give the minutes, great, good signing. But this to me is about the long term, in the sense that Precious is going to have to get paid. Scotty's going to have to get paid. Gary maybe. So like making a big splash in the offseason doesn't really make sense if you're all about internal development, and if you think the projection of these players is high, in which case you want to save space to re-sign them and continue on. So I give it like a 9 out of 10, just because I think I'm all for the Masai vision, and they didn't compromise that, and they brought back pieces that will help us win now. I like the Josh Jackson signing. I think he was in Detroit last year, and he was doing okay. Like he was kind of bounced. He went to Memphis. He kind of found himself again. And Toronto's all about finding those projects like the Stanley Johnsons or the Rondé Halls Jeffersons and turning them into functional players. It doesn't always work out, but I like that they kind of, bring in a bunch of guys and see if one of them can pop in our development system. So yeah, I didn't expect much from the offseason, and I liked what happened for the most part.
Yeah, lots of good points. And I think, I'm 100% with you as far as the vision. And I'll just add too, Nurse is a shot doctor, right? And I think so much of this vision is acquiring a type of player. And, I think they want to bring in defense first guys, and they truly believe they'll be able to teach guys how to shoot. Banton, I think, is a good example of someone who, will he be able to shoot the corner three next year? Hopefully. Does that mean you give up on him if he can't? No. I think you're thinking about a guy like that shooting top of the break threes, maybe in like his 4th season, right? Scotty is a good example of someone who, the Raptors, it's almost like they draft with like, they just put shooting totally aside, and they're like, we just don't care if a guy can shoot. We will teach them to shoot. We will teach them like how to shoot in this team. Even guys we bring in like, Birch, it's like, okay, great. You weren't allowed to shoot for Orlando. We expect you to shoot the corner here.
Yeah.
Thaddeus Young, you used to shoot, but then you weren't shooting. Well, you're shooting again. Koloko, Summer League, hey, take the 3 if you're open, dude. And I think that's sort of part that's baked into the philosophy here. And I also really like the Josh Jackson signing. I just want to correct myself. He was drafted by Phoenix. I thought he was drafted by Detroit, and maybe that's because Adon, you were saying, I don't know. I think of him very similarly to not light in the butt Stanimal, right? I think he's sort of this Stanley Johnson vibe for me, where even if he's not a guy that's part of the Raptors long term, we develop people, and we kind of like are working on this reputation where it's sort of like, you don't go to the Raptors and then leave the NBA. You go to the Raptors and, hey, maybe you're Utah and we dropped you, but hey, you're getting a contract in Brooklyn. Like, we are a good sort of development place. We're a good place for players to be. And that's like, whether you're at the top of the rotation or the bottom of the rotation. And I think that's really important, as a identity, in a place where small markets have a tough time carving out identities.
Yeah. And I don't want to estimate this organization, but I do think they're approaching the San Antonio Spurs, New England Patriots kind of level. Not yet, not obviously in the winning way, but in the sense that like our system and culture is so prominent and first and foremost that you can bring in guys like Jackson who have had difficulty on and off the court. And if they're willing to buy in, like you're saying, and have that mutual agreement, they can benefit the team and also kind of resurrect their career a little bit. And on the note,
I think so.
Yeah, and on the note with Banton, Canada has played Colombia today, and he was 4 for 7 from 3. So there you go. He's
yeah, man. He was,
let's go.
Yeah,
he was hitting them in the. I think there was that one summer league game.
Yeah.
Obviously summer league, right? But he hit his 4. The first 4 threes he took, he hit.
Yeah,
and again, right? It's always like that's sort of like in like pickup, or it's not pickup, but it's more competitive than Rico, I would say. But it's just not organized in a play calling type of way, and the minutes he gets in the NBA will be very, very different. Like, we've all seen a guy like Malcolm Miller just drain threes in the G League and then come to the NBA. And it's like, buddy, you get like 5 minutes a game and you're going to get 2 shots and you better hit one of them. And if you don't, you'll still get a lot of love from Nurse. No, just kidding. Matty D, I think it's just Weird Al now. So, let me just say, give me your best, weirdest Weird Al sting.
This is Adam Silver.
Oh, okay, that's new.
He swore at the end there. He's like,
wow. Wow, the Daniel Radcliffe version is smutty. I like it. Okay, let's go to you first, Adon, on this one.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, this is just sort of biggest piece of news I think in the NBA right now. But yeah, what are your thoughts on the Cavs Jazz trade? Like, I don't know, what thoughts you have about the Jazz, but I guess mostly the Cavs. And where do you see them finishing in the East this year?
I think it puts them in the 5-6 range. We talked about this on the wrap up. Like, there's certainly going to be a good regular season team. There's no question. Like, I think their starting 5 is one of the better starting 5s in the Eastern Conference, if not the league. I loved the trade for Cleveland. They didn't want to re-sign Colin Sexton. Lauri Markkanen in some respects was a liability more than he was a benefit, especially with Mobley and Jarrett Allen. And then Abaji is probably going to be a good player, but he was never there to begin with. So, and then the picks, everybody is mortgaging their future. It kind of seems like people, we were joking, it's like almost like general managers know that the world's coming to an end. So, fuck it, like 2030 first rounder, who cares? We're probably not even going to exist anyway. So, and if things go awry, they can recoup these picks too. They have a lot of guys that they can, trade out if they want to suddenly rebuild around Evan Mobley alone or something like that, right? So I think this is pretty fail-safe for them. Mitchell's really young. He's a top 10 scorer. He fills a lot of the categories that Cleveland lacked because so much of the offense ran through Garland, and he just can only do so much on his own. So Mitchell gives him, obviously, just alleviates so much pressure on Garland and gives them a completely new look offensively. Defensively will be the problem. Obviously, they don't have a wing that can, and that's what Abaji was supposed to be. And so I'm sure they'll be looking to kind of fill that spot. And that's also why I don't think Toronto's as threatened by this acquisition as at first glance, is because we actually match up really well with them, because they don't really have anybody that can guard a lot of our guys. So yeah, but I think the cost for Devin Mitchell was extremely low for what Cleveland paid.
Yeah, I mean, lots of good points there. I think we do match up with them well. It's we're sort of opposites. I think they have Allen and Mobley, and we have so many swingmen, and we're sort of like it's sort of experimental in different ways. But at one point, I want to sort of just jump on and I guess, add to a little bit, although I'm not sure if you fully agree with this, but this sort of hoarding of picks, I think, if you look at it from like you're playing NBA 2K sort of thing, it's like, great, you have all these picks, but I think we've learned in recent history with Danny Ainge and, even the Sixers process, sort of what happens is the trade calculation changes, right? I think when people are dealing with the Thunder or now the Jazz, they ask for more picks because they know they have them, right? So it's not, their picks are sort of like, it's almost like there's this idea that, you can't have too many picks, but I really, I don't really agree with that. And I think what happens is you have a bulk of picks where, your picks are sort of devalued, where, if you're a Raptors and you're Masai, you're like, hey man, like I have just my picks and that's it. So like, this is really important for me. I want to get a Koloko and develop him. I want my Barnes. So it's like, I'm not dealing with, that's not what I'm doing here. And then I also think, what you said, I think is a really good point is, these teams that are going for it, Miami, Cleveland, Minnesota, even, you can still, let's say Minnesota, is a tire fire midseason and they're like, this is awful. This is terrible. We want to trade Towns. Yeah. Well, then they can recoup some picks. And I think that this idea that if you go all in, then you're totally stuck all in is, there's truth to it depending on the contracts and everything. But I just think it's a really good point you bring up that like, these things aren't irreversible. No. So that is important. And I'll say, I feel like I have Cleveland a little bit higher, but sort of when I first saw this trade, I was like, oh my God, they're going to be neck and neck with where I have the Raptors, which is, third in the East, which I think is higher than a lot of people, but that's sort of where I have the Raptors. And, that doesn't mean I think they're going to make to the conference finals or anything. I think we have a really deep, solid regular season team, but I think Cleveland is, I'm closer to, I think I have them in kind of like fourth or fifth. I it's mostly because I feel like I don't know if I'm too high, but I just really feel like Evan Mobley is a very, very special player who, for his position has figured out some of the most important things already and just isn't really a liability in a lot of ways. So I just think that pairing him with Mitchell, assuming Mitchell buys in and everything, that, it makes sense for Cleveland to try and be as good as they can now and figure out their swingman situation later on. So I'm really high on it for Cleveland. And
Mobley, the reason why Markkanen worked last year, because he's by no means a 3, he's a 4 at best, is because Mobley is so long and athletic and versatile. And so I think, like I said, especially in the regular season, him and Allen combined can make up for a lot of their defensive deficiencies.
Totally.
It'll be more there'll be more exploitation in the playoffs when it gets more physical and these smaller guards, Garland and Mitchell, are really kind of put to the test defensively. And that could be when they kind of realize they do need that 6'6", 6'7" guy to kind of get in there and guard the number one, like a Pascal Siakam.
Right.
But until then, I think they're going to be a very good team. And just quickly on the draft picks, I think, the abstract value of the pick has swung again in pendulum, right? But a long time ago, they didn't really have any value. Then they had a lot of value and no one wanted to let go of them. And now it's gone the other direction. And I think that's following suit to the NFL. You see like the LA Rams, they just kind of traded everything they had to win now. And then we'll figure it out later. And I think NBA teams are kind of, like you said, they saw that with the process. They're seeing that with Oklahoma. There have been plenty of other teams who have gotten picks, even the Pelicans to some degree, and it hasn't really gotten them anywhere. And so the value of the player you have before you is worth more than the speculation of what a pick could become, especially with the bottom 4 picks being the same percentage in the lottery, right? You're not guaranteed the first overall pick anymore. So it's interesting philosophically how the approaches to future assets has changed.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think like, that sometimes, yeah, it's, it's speculative, but it's easy to overvalue like, oh man, I have all this stuff for later. And it's sort of like, well, is it going to be good later?
Yeah, who knows?
But also you don't, want to be, you don't have zero options like you're the Lakers and you're like, we have
True.
we have nothing to work with here. We have nothing to sweeten the deal. Similar Clippers are a little bit like that as well. Okay, Anthony, where are you at with this trade in general and the Cavs?
Well, it was kind of one of those like Woj bombs out of nowhere. Like I didn't really expect it to happen. So I was quite surprised. I was like, is there going to be any more fun off-season drama after all this KD stuff has been settled? And my prayers were answered. And this trade is fun. Like I think it's exciting to see another superstar sort of move to a new place for a new start, especially because at the end of the season, all of the drama in Utah was basically like, can these guys be successful without each other, Rudy and Mitchell? And now we have this new storyline going into the next season where it's like, okay, like you're both paired with different stars. Let's see how good offensively Rudy can be, and let's see if they can hide the spider on defense well enough that he can not be a liability. And I think in terms of Cleveland, like it's really amazing how they didn't have to give up all of their depth to get this trade done. Like they still have Karis LeVert and like Kevin Love, Ricky Rubio's coming back. Like the team's in pretty good shape. I just think like, how do these two like sort of ball dominant like scoring guards work together, and what's like sort of the balance that they have to find in order for this offense to move at like a reasonable clip? Like how are they going to work in transition? Like, oh, there's a lot of questions, but it is very exciting to think that like there's potentially another powerhouse team in the East to watch. It's a bit threatening to us as Raptors fans, but hey, it's going to be good for basketball to see all of these sort of key pieces on teams that have been around for a while just have a new sort of change of scenery.
Yeah. And, I think for most of my time being, a super intense NBA fan, the East has been a joke, right? So we're seeing this sort of continual beefing up of the East. The one caveat I always say, and I've said on this podcast so many times, is never underestimate how many bad management teams there are in the East. Like there's always like 4 or 5 cities where you're like, oh, they're doing good stuff. And it's like, oh, wait, yeah, James Dolan or, whatever, Washington. It's like there's just a lot of sort of like incompetence, I think, in the East ownership. But I do feel like you have, at least, I think, 3 teams in the West they're openly tanking to begin the season. And, if I'm not mistaken, the only team openly tanking in the East is the Pacers. I don't know. I think
Orlando,
yeah.
By virtue of not being great. Yeah.
Yeah, Orlando, I think, is like sort of, they're trying to get better, but they want good picks. Exactly, Orlando and the Pacers for sure. But Detroit and whatever's going on with the Knicks and the Wizards, like I think those teams have some idea of like being decent at least. Like who knows what's going on with Charlotte, but I think you made a lot of good points there, Anthony, and it should be interesting to watch Mitchell on, in the East, in Cleveland, and how that all kind of plays out. Like it's not that long ago that he had that incredible bubble, duel with Murray, right? Where the 50-point game. So, this guy can do stuff, and he's also young. I think he's on 3 or 4 years still on the contract. So I'm happy for Cleveland.
The core looks so great. Like,
solid,
they're
right?
just, they're very young. And the thing that's like really important to me about the return for Utah is if somebody goes down or if the injury bug bites Cleveland in one of these seasons, like an unprotected pick it's unprotected. Like that's that's the key word there, right? Like, and if the right prospect comes around, like if there is another generational prospect like Wanyama or whatever in the future classes coming up here, like that's a big miss if, you know, the the worst goes for Cleveland, you know?
Yeah, and I know we were talking about me and Aaron were talking about all the pick stuff, but you know, just talking about a very brief point on the Spurs and the Jazz. I've never seen those teams tank during my kind of like basketball fandom, so I'm interested to see how they approach it. Right, like are they?
Yeah.
You know, I've seen the sort of like forever tanks, like Orlando and, you know, Sacramento and Charlotte sort of thing. But I've never seen like these franchises are generally, they try to be good. Pacers too, I think I'd throw in there as a team that for the most part tries to be competitive for their fan base. So I am fascinated to see how they approach a rebuild.
It could be very interesting to see where the rest of the pieces in Utah go at the deadline. Like
there's lots to go to.
Yeah, like where's the Filipino dreamboat gonna go? Clarkson, where's he gonna get sent to? Where's Bogey gonna go? Like these are all very valuable pieces to a team that is a contender. So
yeah.
The other thing I'll say just quickly about Mitchell, I would say all-star alert because he's never played with a point guard as talented and athletic or as gifted, I'd say, as Garland, because, you know, Conley was a little bit older in his career and was struggled with injury. And he's never played with a big, being Mobley, who is as versatile and athletic on both ends, because, you know, he's only ever really had Gobert. And then I'm trying to think about who else has been on Utah. Like, you know, Bogey probably is the best offensive guy he's had beside him. So this is arguably, even though Utah was so good for so many years, this is arguably the most talented starting lineup he's had around him. And so I could really see him accelerate his game and come flying out of at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a Cleveland fan, you're saying like, hey, Allen was an all-star, Garland was an all-star, Mitchell's going to be an all-star. You know, a guy like Love even has sort of like bought into his role, right? You know, it's not that long ago that we saw Love doing those like super hard passes and like sort of like, I guess, trying to like get his way out of town. And, you know, he's
tantrums.
He's a little tantrum. And, but like, the thing is, he's sort of being like, whatever. Okay, fine. I'm in Cleveland. I'm going to like, I'll hit shots. So, and Cleveland was, you know, they're having an incredible season. They really got hit hard by the injury bug.
Yeah.
Guys, that's it for the pod, though. Thank you both so much for joining. This was a good one. A lot of interesting points, and I think, you know, it's exciting. We're getting close to the beginning of the season here, but let me go to you first, Adon. What do you got going on? You want to let people know? I know you're doing a lot of pods with Oren and stuff with Raptors Republic, but, you know, please plug away.
Yeah, that's about it. Oren and I've been bored, so we just started doing pods on over-unders and who we think is going to be MVP, rookie of the year. So you can find those on the Raptors Republic YouTube or podcast, whichever you prefer. And I will soon begin writing again. It's like you said, training camp's coming up, so keep an eye out for that. And that's it.
Sweet. Well, thanks for doing it, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Antony, what's going on? You know, any shows, anything you want to plug? What's up?
I don't think I have any shows in particular I want to plug that are coming up that are live, but I've been working on this food podcast, part of the Sonar Network, Bites and Bits. And that is a fun little food podcast that marries the energy of going out for a meal after you finish a show. We chat about different themes regarding food and also some comedy as well. And as you mentioned earlier, I had an independent wrestling podcast where we book dream matches, and it's called Book It Vince. We just went to Monday Night Raw in Toronto a couple weeks ago. So we recorded an episode before we went to Raw and then after, and then we recorded a new episode today as well. And that drops every Tuesday wherever podcasts are found.
Amazing. Well, thank you both. And, you know, thanks to everyone who listens to this podcast. We've been, you know, growing this past little while, so we really appreciate everyone. And, you know, follow us on socials at Dunks Podcast or dunkspodcast.com. And yeah, thanks so much, Maddie. If you feel like we're done, we're good to go, please just give me those words I love so much. Okay.
Listen to full episodes of the Confederacy of Dunks only on the Rapcast.